Every single day, your mind is giving you commands. Sometimes it tells you to get up, take action, and move toward your goals, while other times it quietly suggests that you can always start tomorrow. The direction your life takes is determined by which voice you decide to follow. Most people dream about success. They want better health, greater financial freedom, stronger relationships, and more opportunities. But desire alone has never been enough to create results. Success is not determined by what you wish for. It is determined by what you repeatedly choose to do. The truth is simple. Success is not luck, and it is certainly not magic. It is the natural result of discipline, consistency, and effort repeated over time. What many people fail to understand is that discipline does not begin with a schedule or a routine. It begins inside the mind because every action you take first exists as a thought. A thought becomes a choice. A choice becomes an action. An action becomes a habit, and eventually that habit shapes your future. This is why mastering your mind is one of the most important skills you can ever develop. If you cannot control your thoughts, you will constantly struggle to control your behavior. If you cannot direct your attention, distractions will decide the course of your life for you. Think about how many opportunities. It is rarely because people lack talent or potential. More often, opportunities are lost because people lose the battle taking place inside their own minds. That battle appears in many forms. It shows up as procrastination when important work needs to be done, as fear when a new opportunity appears, as doubt when confidence is required, and as comfort when growth demands effort. These invisible struggles quietly determine whether a person moves forward or remains exactly where they are. Comfort is especially dangerous because it rarely looks like an enemy. Instead, it speaks softly and sounds reasonable. It says things like, "Take a break. You can do it later," or "one day won't make a difference." Successful people understand something that many others ignore. Small choices matter more than most people realize. Every disciplined decision, no matter how small, contributes to the larger picture of success. Discipline is choosing what matters most over what feels good right now. It is the ability to prioritize your future instead of surrendering to temporary emotions. Every meaningful achievement is built on thousands of these seemingly insignificant decisions. Imagine what happens when you stop negotiating with your excuses. Imagine refusing to allow temporary feelings to make permanent decisions for you. The moment you begin doing that, everything starts to change. Your focus becomes sharper because your attention is no longer scattered. Your confidence begins to grow because every disciplined action proves that you can trust yourself. Your habits improve because your actions become aligned with your goals. As your habits improve, your results naturally begin to follow. This happens because a disciplined mind creates a disciplined life. The external world starts reflecting the internal changes that have taken place. The quality of your future depends greatly on the quality of your thinking. When you learn to master your thoughts, you gradually begin mastering your decisions, your actions, and eventually your destiny. Success always begins in the mind long before it becomes visible in reality. The greatest victory a person can achieve is not the conquest of the world around them. It is the conquest of the world within them. Every meaningful transformation starts internally before it ever appears externally. Look closely at people who seem stuck in life. Most of them are not first struggling with circumstances. They are struggling with the way they think about those circumstances because every result begins as a thought long before it becomes an outcome. Inside every human being, there is an ongoing battle. One side represents discipline, focus, growth, and progress. The other side represents distraction, fear, comfort, and excuses. Every day, one side wins. If discipline wins, progress follows. If excuses win, nothing changes. There is no true middle ground, because you are either strengthening your mind or allowing your mind to weaken you. Many people believe their biggest problems are external. They blame their environment, their situation, their background, or their circumstances. While these factors can create challenges, the real battle is often happening inside their own thinking. Change the way you think, and you begin changing the direction of your life. A stronger mindset creates stronger decisions. Better decisions create better actions, and better actions create better outcomes. Think of your mind as the leader of your entire life. If that leader is weak, everything becomes weak. If that leader is confused, everything becomes confused, and if that leader lacks discipline, instability begins to spread into every area of life. That leader is your mind. For this reason, your first responsibility is not to control the world around you. Your first responsibility is learning how to control yourself. Every thought you repeatedly entertain becomes a suggestion. Every suggestion you accept eventually becomes a belief. Every belief you repeat becomes a habit, and every habit contributes to the future you will experience. This is how powerful the human mind truly is. When left unchecked, it can absorb doubt, fear, negativity, and excuses until those thoughts begin to feel like facts. The danger is that repetition can make false ideas seem true. A thought repeated often enough eventually becomes a belief. Once a belief is formed, it starts influencing your decisions without you even realizing it. Over time, those decisions shape the course of your life. The good news is that while you cannot always control every thought that enters your mind, you can control which thoughts are allowed to stay. That is where true discipline begins. Mental discipline means refusing to give power to weak thinking. It means refusing to repeat excuses, refusing to accept unnecessary limitations, and refusing to allow negativity to become your identity, because what stays in your mind eventually appears in your life. The people who achieve extraordinary results are not people who never face challenges. They are people who learn to win the battle within themselves. And once you learn to win there, you gain the ability to win almost anywhere. Now imagine a person who has learned how to master their mind. They do not panic the moment pressure appears, and they do not fall apart when challenges become difficult. Instead of reacting emotionally to every obstacle, they respond with discipline, clarity, and self-control. Because of that control, their life slowly begins to change. Not because the world suddenly became easier, but because they became stronger. The strongest people are not those who never struggle. They are the people who consistently win the battle taking place inside themselves. If you truly want success, this is where the journey must begin. It starts in your thoughts long before it shows up in your results. When you learn to control your mind, you gain the power to control your future. Success is never a matter of chance. It is a matter of choice repeated day after day. Every successful outcome can usually be traced back to disciplined thinking and consistent action. Many people assume discipline begins with habits or routines. In reality, discipline begins with thought, because every action was once an idea that you chose to entertain. If your thinking remains undisciplined, your actions will eventually reflect that disorder. Your mind is constantly active. It is always talking, suggesting, questioning, influencing, and directing your behavior. Some thoughts push you toward growth while others pull you toward comfort, and success depends on which voice receives your attention. Let's be honest about something. Most people are not failing because they lack knowledge. They usually know what they should do, but they struggle to do it consistently. They know they should exercise, but they postpone it. They know they should study, improve, save money, or work on their goals, yet they continue delaying action. The problem is not a lack of information, it is a lack of mental discipline. A mind without discipline will always find reasons to wait. It says things like, "I'm tired, it's too difficult, I'll start next week," or "today isn't the right day." These excuses seem harmless at first, but they slowly become habits. Tomorrow becomes next week. Next week becomes next month. Next month becomes next year, and before long, years have passed without meaningful progress. The tragedy is that life did not stop them, their own thinking stopped them. You are influenced far more by your mindset than by your circumstances. Two people can face the same challenge and produce completely different outcomes because they think differently about it. That difference in thinking creates a difference in action. So how do you begin disciplining your mind? The first step is learning to control your thoughts rather than allowing your thoughts to control you. Not every thought deserves your attention, and not every feeling deserves your obedience. Some thoughts should be ignored immediately. Others should be challenged because they are based on fear rather than truth. If you follow every thought that enters your mind, you will eventually lose direction. Look at highly successful people. They do not react to every impulse that appears. They do not allow every emotion to dictate their behavior, and they certainly do not follow every distraction that crosses their path. Instead, they choose carefully. They decide deliberately. They control their responses rather than being controlled by them. That ability is one of the clearest signs of true discipline. Discipline is choosing what you want most over what you want right now. It is the ability to sacrifice temporary comfort for long-term reward. The stronger this ability becomes, the stronger your life becomes. What many people fail to realize is that discipline is built in small moments. It is not created during major events or life-changing opportunities. It is developed during ordinary decisions that happen every single day. It is built when you wake up and decide to work even though you would rather stay comfortable. It is built when you continue studying despite feeling unmotivated. It is built when you move forward even when enthusiasm is nowhere to be found. Every small decision trains your mind. It either trains you toward discipline or trains you toward weakness. There is no neutral outcome because every choice reinforces a pattern. When you repeatedly give in to excuses, those excuses become stronger. They become easier to believe and easier to follow. Over time, they begin shaping your identity. On the other hand, every time you resist an excuse, you weaken its influence. Every time you choose action over delay, you strengthen your mental toughness. Repetition eventually reshapes the way you think. You do not need a perfect mindset before you begin. What you need is a willing mindset. You need a mind that refuses to negotiate endlessly with goals and responsibilities. Perfection is not the goal. Direction is the goal. A disciplined person is not someone who never struggles. It is someone who continues moving in the right direction despite the struggle. A disciplined mind does not always feel confident. It chooses confidence-producing actions anyway. It does not always feel motivated, but it acts anyway because it understands that action often creates motivation rather than waiting for it. Many people wait until they feel ready before taking action. The problem is that readiness often comes after action, not before it. Confidence grows when you move forward despite uncertainty. Action is one of the most powerful cures for doubt. Every step forward provides evidence that you are capable. Every completed task proves that resistance can be overcome. Understand this deeply. Every time you delay something important, you weaken your ability to trust yourself. You send your mind a message that your commitments are optional rather than necessary. But every time you act despite resistance, you strengthen your character. You teach yourself that your goals matter more than your excuses. That lesson becomes a powerful source of confidence. Discipline is not developed in comfort. It is developed in resistance. It grows when you continue despite difficulty, when you choose effort over ease, and when you refuse to quit simply because something feels uncomfortable. Now think about your future. The quality of your life will not be determined by what you know. It will be determined by what you consistently do, and what you consistently do is ultimately controlled by your mind. That is why mental discipline matters so much. Discipline your thoughts, discipline your attention, and discipline your decisions. Once your mind becomes stronger, your actions naturally begin to follow. Master the mind and you begin mastering your life. Think clearly, decide firmly, and act consistently. Success begins the moment your mind stops negotiating with excuses and starts leading with purpose. Success is never built in a single day. It is built through what you choose to do every day. Most people spend their lives waiting for one huge opportunity, one breakthrough moment, or one life-changing event, but lasting success rarely works that way. The truth is that success is a pattern. It is a pattern created by discipline, consistency, and small actions repeated over long periods of time. What appears to be an overnight achievement is usually the result of years of unseen effort. Every day you are becoming something. Your daily actions are shaping your character, building your habits, and influencing your future whether you realize it or not. The person you become tomorrow is being created by the decisions you make today. What you do occasionally has very little impact compared to what you do consistently. Repetition is powerful because repetition creates identity. The things you repeatedly practice eventually become part of who you are. If you repeatedly choose discipline, discipline becomes natural. If you repeatedly choose effort, strength begins to develop. If you repeatedly choose focus, concentration becomes easier and more automatic. The opposite is also true. If you repeatedly choose laziness, laziness becomes familiar. If you repeatedly choose excuses, excuses become your default response. If you constantly choose distraction, you slowly lose direction. This is why daily discipline is so important. It is not only shaping your results. It is shaping your identity. Every action is casting a vote for the type of person you are becoming. When people look at successful individuals, they often focus on talent. They assume those people were born with special gifts or advantages. While talent can help, it is rarely the deciding factor. Many successful people are not dramatically more talented than everyone else. What separates them is consistency. They continue showing up long after others have stopped trying. When others become distracted, they remain committed. When others quit because progress feels slow, they keep moving. When others wait for motivation, they rely on discipline. Over time, that consistency becomes a powerful advantage. Small disciplined actions repeated day after day eventually produce results that seem extraordinary. What appears impressive in the future is usually the result of simple habits practiced in the present. The foundation of daily discipline is surprisingly simple. It is built through ordinary actions performed consistently. Waking up on time, learning regularly, practicing valuable skills, and working steadily toward important goals may not seem exciting, but they create remarkable outcomes over time. Many people search for complicated strategies while ignoring simple habits. They want dramatic transformation without daily commitment. Yet the most powerful improvements usually come from mastering basic disciplines. Greatness is not built through intensity alone. Intensity can produce short bursts of progress, but consistency produces lasting results. A person who works steadily every day will often outperform someone who only works hard occasionally. Understand this clearly. You do not need to transform your entire life in a single week. You do not need to accomplish everything immediately. You simply need to commit to doing the right things consistently. Even small improvements matter. Even small victories matter. Every disciplined choice contributes to future progress because small actions compound over time. Think about a seed planted in the ground. It does not become a tree overnight. For a long time, growth remains invisible, and nothing seems to be happening on the surface. Yet beneath the ground, important development is taking place. Roots are growing deeper. Strength is forming quietly. Progress is happening even when it cannot be seen. Your life works the same way. Many disciplined actions produce results that are invisible at first. You may not immediately see stronger character, greater confidence, improved skills, or increased momentum. However, every disciplined choice is creating something valuable beneath the surface. Over time, those invisible improvements become visible results. What once seemed small eventually becomes impossible to ignore. That is why patience is so important. Many people quit because they do not see immediate progress. They expect instant rewards and become discouraged when success takes time. The disciplined person understands a different principle. They understand that growth often happens quietly before it becomes obvious. They continue doing the work because they trust the process. What you do every day matters far more than what you do once in a while. A single productive day cannot overcome months of inconsistency. Lasting success is created through repeated effort. There is another truth many people fail to recognize. You do not rise to the level of your goals. Instead, you fall to the level of your systems. Your daily habits create the structure that determines your results. If your system is weak, your progress will eventually become weak. If your system is strong, your future becomes stronger as well. This is why daily discipline is not optional for long-term success. Take a moment and ask yourself an honest question. What are your current habits creating? Are they moving you closer to your goals or pulling you farther away from them? Every day you are moving in one direction or another. You are either making progress or creating delay. Remaining completely still is not really an option because your choices are always producing consequences. Choose discipline even when it feels difficult. Choose consistency even when progress seems slow. Choose action even when motivation is absent because success is rarely created through occasional effort. Success is created through habits. It is built through the actions you repeat so often that they become part of your identity. Eventually those habits begin producing results automatically. Excellence is not a single act. It is a habit developed through repetition. Every great achievement is built on countless small decisions that most people never see. Make the decision to commit to daily discipline. Commit to showing up even when conditions are not perfect. Commit to taking action even when enthusiasm is low. There will be days when progress feels slow. There will be moments when results seem distant. There will be times when it feels easier to quit than to continue. Those moments are important because they reveal your level of commitment. Anyone can stay disciplined when everything feels easy. Real discipline appears when things become challenging. The actions that seem small today may become the foundation of extraordinary success tomorrow. What feels insignificant in the present can become powerful when repeated consistently over time. Stay committed to the process. Stay focused on the habits that matter. Continue moving forward one step at a time because every disciplined action is quietly building the future you will eventually live. The life you want is not created in one dramatic moment. It is created through daily choices made repeatedly over months and years. That is why consistency remains one of the most powerful forces in the world. Success belongs to those who continue showing up. It belongs to those who stay committed when others lose focus. It belongs to those who understand that small actions, practiced daily, eventually create extraordinary results. And while daily discipline builds success, there is another obstacle that destroys more dreams than failure itself. It is an obstacle so common that most people hardly notice it, yet it quietly steals potential every single day. That obstacle is the habit of making excuses. Excuses are one of the most dangerous habits a person can develop because they rarely appear harmful in the beginning. They often sound logical, reasonable, and even justified, but over time they slowly shape the direction of a person's entire life. Most people do not fail suddenly. Failure usually happens gradually through repeated excuses that seem small at first but grow stronger with time. Statements like, "I'm too tired," "I'll do it later," or "it's not the right time," begin as harmless thoughts but eventually turn into a pattern. At the start, these excuses feel easy to accept. They reduce pressure in the moment and create a sense of comfort. However, every time you accept an excuse, you are also training your mind to choose comfort over progress. Mental weakness is not something people are born with. It is developed through repetition. Every time you give in to an excuse, you reinforce that behavior and make it easier for your mind to repeat it again in the future. The mind learns through patterns. When excuses are repeated often enough, they start to feel normal. What once felt like avoidance begins to feel like a valid decision, even when it is holding you back. Successful people are not free from excuses. They experience the same thoughts, the same resistance, and the same desire to avoid difficult tasks. The difference is in how they respond to those thoughts. Instead of accepting excuses, they challenge them. Instead of delaying action, they move forward. Instead of negotiating with their goals, they commit to them. This difference in response creates a completely different outcome over time. Discipline is not about feeling motivated all the time. It is about doing what needs to be done even when motivation is missing. It is about choosing responsibility over comfort in moments when comfort feels easier. Excuses are deceptive because they rarely announce themselves as excuses. They often disguise themselves as logic. They sound like reason, but in reality, they are resistance trying to protect comfort. Think about how many dreams are delayed not because they are impossible, but because they are postponed repeatedly. Not because people cannot achieve them, but because they keep convincing themselves to start later. The truth is that most people do not need more information. They already know what to do. What they lack is the ability to act without constant negotiation with themselves. A weak mind constantly negotiates. It looks for reasons to delay, reasons to avoid discomfort, and reasons to justify inaction. A strong mind makes decisions and follows through without unnecessary delay. Mental strength is built when excuses are consistently refused. Every time you reject an excuse, you strengthen your discipline. Every time you choose action instead of avoidance, you build inner resilience. This process is not instant. It happens gradually through repetition. Each time you push through resistance, you are training your mind to become more reliable and more focused. On the other hand, every time you accept an excuse, you weaken your ability to trust yourself. You slowly teach your mind that your decisions are flexible and your commitments are optional. This is why discipline is closely connected to identity. What you repeatedly do begins to define who you believe you are. Over time, your actions shape your self-image. Now think about your future self, the version of you that you want to become. That future is not waiting for perfect conditions. It is waiting for better decisions in the present moment. Every excuse you accept today becomes a limitation tomorrow. Every time you choose delay, you reduce your future potential. Every time you choose discipline, you expand it. You cannot protect both comfort and growth at the same time. At some point, you must choose between the two because they often pull in opposite directions. If you consistently protect comfort, your progress slows down. But if you consistently choose growth, comfort begins to shrink its influence over your decisions. The path to discipline begins with awareness. You must first recognize when excuses appear and understand how they influence your behavior. Without awareness, change is impossible. Once you become aware, the next step is simple but powerful. Stop accepting excuses as valid reasons for inaction. Not every feeling deserves a decision. Not every thought deserves attention. There will always be resistance when you try to grow. The mind naturally prefers safety and familiarity. But growth requires stepping outside of what feels easy. Every time you overcome an excuse, you are strengthening your character. You are proving to yourself that your goals matter more than temporary comfort. This is how confidence is built. Not through words, but through action. Every completed task despite resistance builds trust in yourself. Over time, that trust becomes one of your greatest strengths. When you know you can rely on yourself, challenges become easier to face and obstacles become less intimidating. The real danger is not failure. The real danger is the slow acceptance of excuses until they become a normal part of your life. Once that happens, potential remains unused and dreams remain delayed. But the opposite is also true. When excuses are consistently rejected, a powerful transformation takes place. Discipline becomes natural, action becomes consistent, and progress becomes steady. At that point, you stop waiting for the perfect moment. You stop waiting for motivation. You simply act because you understand that action is the only thing that breaks the cycle of delay. Every disciplined action creates momentum. Every moment of momentum makes the next step easier. Over time, that momentum turns into progress that cannot be ignored. So the real question is simple. Will you continue accepting excuses, or will you begin challenging them? Because the direction of your life depends on that choice. Excuses build a life of delay, but discipline builds a life of progress. One keeps you comfortable today but limits your future. The other demands effort today but creates freedom later. The choice is always in your hands. And every decision you make either strengthens your discipline or strengthens your excuses. There is no neutral ground. Where your focus goes, your life eventually follows. This is one of the most important truths about human behavior, yet most people underestimate how powerful focus really is. It is not just attention, it is direction, energy, and influence over your entire future. Whatever you consistently focus on begins to grow in your life. If your focus stays on problems, your mind will continue finding more problems. If your focus stays on fear, your actions will become limited by that fear. If your focus is scattered, your results will also be scattered. But when your focus is directed toward growth, improvement, and discipline, everything begins to shift. You start noticing opportunities instead of obstacles. You start seeing solutions instead of limitations. Success is not about doing everything at once. It is about doing the right things with complete focus. A focused mind always produces stronger results than a distracted one, even if the effort is smaller. Modern life constantly fights for your attention. Notifications, social media, entertainment, comparison, and endless information are designed to pull your mind in different directions. Every distraction steals a small part of your future without you even realizing it. Progress, however, requires deep focus. It requires the ability to stay committed to one direction long enough for meaningful results to appear. Without focus, effort becomes wasted energy. Successful people are not necessarily doing more than others. In many cases, they are simply more focused. While others switch between tasks and distractions, they remain committed to what truly matters. Focus is not something that happens by accident. It is a skill that must be trained and protected. Every day, you are deciding what deserves your attention, and whatever receives your attention begins to shape your life. If your attention is constantly given to distractions, your life becomes unstable and unfocused. But if your attention is directed toward meaningful goals, your life begins to gain clarity and direction. Most people believe they need more time, but the real issue is not time. It is focus. A focused hour is far more powerful than a distracted day. Focus multiplies productivity, while distraction destroys it. Think of a magnifying glass. Sunlight spread out has little effect, but when that same light is focused into one point, it becomes powerful enough to create fire. Your life works in the same way. Scattered attention leads to scattered results. Focused attention leads to transformation. That is why protecting your focus is one of the most important disciplines you can develop. Ask yourself honestly, what is stealing your attention? What habits, thoughts, or distractions are pulling you away from your goals? Because anything that takes your focus also takes your progress. Discipline requires you to guard your attention carefully. Not occasionally, but consistently. Every day, you must choose what deserves your mental energy and what does not. Every moment of focus moves you forward, while every moment of distraction moves you backward. Over time, these small movements determine the overall direction of your life. This is why success belongs to those who stay focused. Not the busiest people, not the most distracted people, but the most focused ones. They understand that progress requires consistency in attention. Now everything comes back to one final truth. Discipline is not something you apply once. It is something you become. It becomes your identity, your mindset, and your way of living. A disciplined mind is a controlled mind. A controlled mind produces controlled actions. Controlled actions produce controlled results. And those results eventually shape your entire life. Success is not luck, and it is not magic. It is the outcome of repeated discipline, repeated effort, and repeated focus over time. Nothing more, nothing less. You do not need a completely different life to start changing. You need a different mindset. A stronger mindset. A disciplined mindset that refuses to be controlled by excuses or distractions. When your mindset changes, everything begins to change with it. Your habits shift, your decisions improve, your actions become more intentional, and your future begins to take a new direction. Every disciplined thought you choose, every focused decision you make, and every consistent action you take is building the life you will eventually live. Do not wait for motivation because motivation is temporary. Do not wait for perfect timing because it rarely comes. Instead, train your mind daily, even in small ways, because that is where real transformation begins. Mastering your mind is the real foundation of success. Once your mind is under control, your habits become easier to manage, your goals become clearer, and your progress becomes consistent. The strongest victory in life is not external. It is internal. It is the ability to control your thoughts, direct your focus, and choose discipline over comfort again and again. When you master your mind, you master your actions. When you master your actions, you master your future. And when you master your future, you begin to shape your destiny with intention instead of chance. So move forward with discipline. Think clearly. Focus deeply. Act consistently. And remember that every small step of discipline today is building a stronger version of you tomorrow.